The world's come to expect great things from UC Davis. The bold, the daring, the big ideas that do more than address today. They solve for tomorrow. As we look forward, we look to you. We're asking you to think bigger than what's possible of an individual, to make a greater difference with us. Expect greater from UC Davis for the world.
Hello everyone, I'm Chancellor Gary May with Lachelle. Welcome. We are so glad you could join us for another installment of the Plugged In series. Today, you're going to learn how UC Davis is sustaining a healthier community for students by providing equitable access to the resources they need to thrive. Over the course of their college careers, 44% of UC Davis students experience low or very low food security, and 18% experience some form of housing insecurity. Across the University of California system, 44% of undergraduates and 26% of graduate students experience some level of food insecurity, and 5% experience homelessness. Providing Aggies with equitable access to food and housing security is a vital aspect in making sure they can reach their highest potential. UC Davis is answering this call and leading the way to address this critical issue with the Aggie Compass Basic Needs Center.
Aggie Compass provides students a welcoming and comfortable space where they can find a variety of personalized services and resources. From picking up fresh produce to receiving CalFresh enrollment assistance and getting help finding stable housing. Aggie Compass is an invaluable resource for our campus community. At UC Davis, we aim to set a new standard for community well-being, not only addressing current needs, but giving people the resources they need to thrive. Aggie Compass's mission to help mitigate the effects of food and housing insecurity on students while working to change policies, systems, and environments that affect long-term change. That exemplifies how UC Davis is creating healthier communities and building a better future.
Today, you'll hear from the director of Aggie Compass, as well as two current Aggies that are helping UC Davis push the boundaries of what's possible and pursue positive solutions that will change this world for the better. This critical work and commitment to equitable access is why Lachelle and I are proud to be philanthropic supporters of our basic needs programs. We hope you enjoy today's discussion and are as inspired by their work as we are.
As Chancellor May said, food and housing insecurity is a UC system-wide issue. It's an issue on our campus and every campus in the system. As a regent, I sat on the Special Committee on Basic Needs that was formed to try to understand the root causes of the issue and develop some strategies to combat it. We heard testimony from campus administrators, researchers, and policymakers on the breadth and scope of the problem. Most searing for me was testimony from students themselves whose needs were not being met by financial aid or lack of family support or other issues. Let's also not forget that adequate mental health care is part of the basic needs equation. One of the statistics I learned from the report issued by the Special Committee on Basic Needs is that students who experience food or housing insecurity are 11% less likely to finish their degrees in 4 years than students who do not have such challenges. That has huge ramifications, not just for the students themselves, but for their financial obligations and their time to degree, as well as the system as a whole. The committee's work ended with a lengthy report that will not sit on a shelf somewhere, but will serve as a guide for our researchers, policymakers, and advocates going forward to better meet our students' financial needs, financial and other basic needs. Today, you'll hear from students and others and get a quick overview to a very complicated topic, specifically because you're Aggies or friends of the university, you're problem solvers. We're going to talk to you about ways that you can be part of the solution. I was fortunate as a regent to understand what our campuses are doing to help students with such needs, both through my service on the special committee and by touring different campuses' basic needs centers. Every campus has one, every campus in the 10 campus system. Aggie Compass at UC Davis, however, is held out time and time again as a model for what other campus basic needs centers should be doing. There's no better person to lead us through what Aggie Compass does and how it addresses student basic needs than its director, Leslie Kemp. Leslie, I turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Debbie. As Debbie mentioned, I'm the director of the Aggie Compass Basic Needs Center and the Aggie and the Basic Needs Initiative here on campus, and I'm so proud to be a part of this Aggie community. As Michelle mentioned, our mission is to help mitigate the effects of food and housing insecurity on students while working to change policy systems and environments that affect long-term change. There are 4 basic pillars to basic needs: food, housing, finances, and mental health. That definition has recently been expanded to include transportation, hygiene, and support for children of students. What we know is that these basic needs insecurities often affect students, not just one at a time, but all of them. If you're financially insecure, you're often food insecure, you're housing insecure. And we know that all of these together contribute to chronic stress for our students. We also have research that came out a few years ago from the University of San Francisco, UC San Francisco, that linked chronic stress and mental health challenges with lower GPAs and lower graduation rates. So we take this very seriously. At the center, some of the resources that we offer in the area of food are CalFresh enrollment assistance. CalFresh, as most of you probably know, is what we formerly called food stamps. It's a federal program that provides up to $204 a month for students that can go towards groceries. That process of signing up can be very bureaucratic and lots of paperwork. So we help students sign up for that. We also collaborate with the ASUCB Pantry. With them, we run a network of pantries, including the Solano Park Pantry. We work with the Graduate Student Association to run that pantry that's now at the new Walker Hall. We have satellite pantries and a mobile pantry now, thanks to donation that we can, in the fall especially, we'll be driving around campus and doing pop-up pantries. We have a free produce program that provides organic produce free to students twice a week. We have grocery gift card programs and meal swipe programs. We also have basic needs emergency grants. These are for students who are in basic needs crisis, rental assistance grants. We have a Blue to Gold financial wellness program. That's like teaching students financial literacy. Emergency transitional housing. One of our big things we launched this year was the college-focused rapid rehousing program. I could talk about that all day, but they won't let me. So that's just some of the highlights of the programming that we offer. In short, my job is to make sure our students have the resources that they need to be basic needs secure. So to not just succeed, but to thrive. I'm delighted to be with you today and serve as the moderator for this plugged-in event. You'll get an insider's view at how the Aggie Compass Basic Needs Center is helping Aggies in need and changing lives. The university wanted to host these plugged-in events to keep us all connected during social distancing, and so that we could keep you apprised of the many exciting things that are happening here at UC Davis. During today's event, I'll introduce our speakers and ask them questions about their roles and experiences working with students to address basic needs. After our speakers have had the opportunity to share, I'll open it up for Q&A. For those of you who have already submitted questions before the webinar, thank you. If you have yet to submit a question, don't worry, just use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you want one of those questions to go to a specific panelist, please include their name with your question. And lastly, during the Q&A, there'll be a short poll that I'll ask you all to fill out, and that'll just give us insight into your interests and help us plan for future events. With that, I'm excited to get started. I'd like to now introduce our two phenomenal speakers. There they are, Faith Oladimeji and Gwen Chodur. Faith is a third-year neurobiology, physiology, and behavior major and is the co-manager of the Aggie Compass Basic Needs Center. She also heads up the Aggie Compass front desk.
Hi, hello everyone.
Gwen is a PhD candidate in nutritional biology and is a graduate student researcher for Aggie Compass. Thank you both for joining us today. I'd like to start by asking Faith a few questions about her work to address student basic needs. Faith, could you tell us a little bit about what you do for Aggie Compass?
Yeah, so as Leslie has mentioned, I am the co-manager for the student center, and I do a lot of front desk work. So right now we're actually kind of hybrid. We do have a virtual front desk and we have an in-person front desk, and I do both. So sometimes I'm in the center and sometimes I work from home due to the pandemic. And I see a lot of students. So basically we are the first face that students who are in need or need some type of help meet. So which means that we do have to represent the center in a very positive light. So basically if a student comes in for any resources, we are the first ones that they meet and we do the referrals. I also do a lot of car fresh work where if students come into our center or go log in on our Zoom front desk and they have any CalFresh questions, we've all been trained to be able to answer all CalFresh questions by the county. So I feel pretty cool, you know, be able to answer questions like that. Also, we do pre-screen students. So basically there are some requirements or like list of eligibility that students need to kind of like check before they go ahead and sign up for CalFresh. And we also do help them with the application process. It's pretty easy, but we still do guide them along the way so that they're getting the best out of the experience. And also, we don't really do set up the interviews. That's up to the county, but we do give them the follow-up that, you know, the county will reach out to you, and if approved, you will be getting your benefits as soon as possible. Prior to the pandemic, I used to work with my other co-manager on pop-up pantries, like Leslie mentioned. We didn't have the car right there back then. We have the bicycles. So we would ride the bicycles all the way to like the silo or the arc, you know, the most populated area of campus. And we would just give out like snacks. We usually target midterms week and finals week, and we just give out stuff like stress balls and healthy snacks and like some stuff like that, just so students can feel like we actually do care about, you know, their mental health, their physical health, and, you know, just making sure that they are feeling loved and feeling welcome. So me and my other co-manager, we did plan those pop-ups back prior to the pandemic. Now that we have the pandemic and, you know, things are crazy, hopefully, like Leslie has mentioned, we will continue the pop-up pantries once fall quarter resumes back in person. Yeah, and I'll do, like I mentioned, we do a lot of referrals. So we do have two basic needs coordinators. One is specifically for food and one is specific for housing. So depending on what the students come into the center or through our Zoom once, we do refer them back to either, you know, the food resources or the housing resources. I don't really help much with food and veggie up, but I do know the ins and outs of food and veggie up. But we do have two wonderful students who do work specifically on food and veggie up, which is one of our programs where we do give out fresh fruits and veggies weekly. So again, with the pandemic, we've had to adjust some things here and there, but usually back when we're in person, so, it was, I think, one day on Friday, and we'd have students come in and just grab fresh fruit and veggies, and it was all for free. And we had a pretty huge turnout. So that's something that's very, very successful of ours. And yeah, also behind the scenes, I do some type of scheduling. So making sure that we have at least one student worker on shift. That way, you know, that we were actually open from 9 to 5. So yeah, that's pretty much the work I do at the center.
Thanks, Faith. Can you share with us the impact you've seen that Aggie Compass has had on the community?
Yes, absolutely. So I joined to be a part of this team my sophomore year, and I did not know much about, food and housing insecurity because it wasn't something that I feel like I was kind of like privileged in that aspect. Growing up, we did experience some type of food insecurity, but it wasn't like I didn't expect it to be in college because I thought, your freshman year, everything was taken care of. Your food was taken care of, housing was taken care of. But, as we all know, UC Davis has 1 year guaranteed housing, and second year and beyond, you kind of have to figure housing by yourself. So I didn't really realize the impact food and housing security can have on students into joining basic needs center. And then I realized that it can go beyond just, having to figure out, okay, where am I going to stay today? Where am I going to find food? It also affects lots of students like mental health and also academic careers. And we've had lots of students, and I've seen firsthand students come in feeling so like down and feeling like they can't do anything by themselves. Like, you just feel so helpless. And then they come into our center, feeling, and sometimes I've come to realize that sometimes we can't plan for things like this. We can't plan to be unhoused. We can't plan to not have food. Like, things happen, life happens. It could be, financial hits, your financial aid status changed. It could be, example, we didn't plan for a pandemic, but a pandemic happened and people lost their jobs. So, I've seen a bunch of students come into our center with different scenarios, different situations, but it's been so amazing to see that our resources have helped them and put them back on track for graduation. I personally saw one student who came in, wanted to drop out because, they felt like they couldn't do it anymore. And they were houseless, they were unhoused and didn't know where to find the next meal. So we connected them to, one of our housing resources, our rapid rehousing resources, and they came in. Now they have a stable housing as well as a meal plan. So the rapid rehousing program does come with a meal plan and also stable housing. So now they feel much more motivated to, continue and to graduate and to be on the right path to like the initial dream they came into Davis with. So it's been so amazing to see us do like that 360 and that transformation from someone who was ready to drop out to someone who is now so much motivated and want to continue this journey of like getting a bachelor's degree. And, first generation, first year family. It's really, really hard. But it's so amazing to see that our resources is doing wonders and helping so many students. And that's just one out of hundreds that we've helped, especially over the pandemic. There's been so many students who have been using our resources because, again, we didn't plan for a pandemic, but it's here, it happened. But I'm so proud of the work we've done and how we've been able to adjust, through the pandemic to still continue to help students. So it's been so impactful for me. It's been crazy and great to see at the same time. And I'm honestly so humbled. And I definitely want to keep doing this even after we graduate because it's so important.
Thank you so much, Faith.
Sure.
I'll just add in there. When we first opened, it was about 3 years ago now. It was about a year after we opened, and I got a call from a student. That it was a prospective student who had gotten into UC Davis, was coming to UC Davis, and she said to me that she was homeless currently. So as a senior in high school, she was finishing high school homeless and coming in, like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, but she was homeless coming into UC Davis. And her question was, I know I'm taken care of when I get there. I have food, I have housing, but what about breaks? What do I do over Christmas break? And that was just the first out of many calls like that. So anyway, thank you, Faith. Thank you for how you help our students. Gwen, I'd like to now switch over to you and ask you the same question. Gwen, could you tell us a little bit about what you do for the Basic Needs Center and also on the Basic Needs Advisory Committee and all the different hats you wear for basic needs?
Sure. Thank you, Leslie. So I'll try to keep it brief because there's quite a few roles. I've actually been involved in Aggie Compass before it had a name. before, when this was just an idea that several of our students have. And so we were, tasked with thinking about what this center would look like, what sorts of services would it do, what were things that students needed most, what would make students want to come. So I've found that I've been involved in the conceptual side of most of what Aggie Compass has done since my second year of the PhD program. I'm now finishing my fifth. Currently, I'm the graduate student researcher at Aggie Compass, and so I have several things that I do with that. One of the main ones is that managing and overseeing our data collection and data analysis. So with some of our funding from the state of California, we're required to report the number of students who use our services, use our programs. I did see a question in the Q&A about that. It is literally thousands of students a year. The most recent that comes to mind, I believe the 2019-2020 school year, we served more than 10,000 contacts with students. And so I'm doing those things in the background, making sure that we are capturing the data that we need to capture, that we're reporting that data. I'm also involved in coordinating our research and evaluation efforts. So not only do we do these programs, but we know that these programs are reliant on state money, on donor money, on philanthropic funds. And so we want to make sure that we're using money in a way that makes sense and that is actually helping our students. And so I've been coordinating program evaluation for several of our programs. I have more on the evaluation side, but then also through the Basic Needs Committee, the Advisory Committee, I'm on the Food Subcommittee, where we develop new programs to meet emergent needs that we're seeing throughout the campus. I also work with some of our student fellows. So through the Global Food Initiative, we also have other students who are training through the Compass to look at research or public health-based careers. And I'm involved in our statewide Basic Needs Advisory Committee also, which coordinates these activities across the state. So yeah, I think that was a pretty brief rundown of everything.
Yeah. That was a lot shorter than it could have been. The list goes on. Can you tell us about the impact that you've seen on campus because of some of these basic needs efforts and Aggie Compass efforts?
Yeah, I'm in a really privileged position with being able to see this because I see some of it firsthand. I also TA, so deal with students, have students in my classroom every quarter, and talk to colleagues in our TA office and things like that. And frequently, multiple times a quarter, at least every other week, someone comes up to me and asks about either themselves or their friend or a student in their class who is struggling. They're living in their car, or their electricity has been turned off at home, or things like that. What can they do? Where can they go? And being able to look at someone and say, hey, it's okay, we've got you. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to connect you to this person. They're going to be able to get you set up with whatever you need. And just like the genuine feeling of relief that comes over people's faces, just to say, hey, you don't need to worry about it anymore. So there's, that one-on-one connection. From a program, planning and advocacy perspective, I'm also involved in our graduate student association, which is our graduate student government. And one of the things that we had heard multiple times from graduate students was that they felt stigmatized or they felt uncomfortable using some of the services where their students might see them. And so it was actually a barrier to graduate students accessing the pantry. And so that was a conversation that we took to Leslie, and the Compass said, we're going to support you. We're going to help you open a graduate student pantry. And so, we've been able to do that. We've been able to serve our graduate students with dignity, to make sure that they're supported in the ways that they need to be supported. And then finally, I also get to see the impact on the research and evaluation side. So, there's this personal connection of seeing that we're making a difference and that we're helping people. But we also, through our data collection, know that empirically, what we're doing is helping students in a variety of ways. So for example, right now, one of the things that I'm working on system-wide is data analysis from a survey that we completed from students who had used the pantries at all 10 UCs. And we found that access to the pantries results in measurable improvements, both in diet quality and in health, including symptoms of depression and sleep duration. And then, as we watch the video that we have from our pantry, it's really easy to see why this program is so effective and why it's able to help so many students.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Faith. Before we dive into our questions, I want to take a moment to highlight just how lucky we are to have Aggies like Faith and Gwen championing real change and impacting the lives of their fellow students in such positive ways. And I'd also like to show a video that was put together by the pantry so that you can see a little bit more about how it works there.
Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the A-City Pantry has served about 1,000 students. We've seen an increased need across our student parent population, our students with dependents, and especially our international students who have not been able to return home throughout the pandemic. In light of this, we've expanded our network of partnerships as we can continue to be able to provide an equitable service, helping students receive what they need, not just what we're able to offer. So we worked with many different partners such as the Yellow Food Bank and Student Farm to be able to provide fresh groceries at no cost for all of our students. The A-City Pantry online ordering system based on Salesforce was developed by our student team to be able to help students order in advance and see what we have available in real time. This is the first system in the UC to be able to offer both an online ordering system and an inventory management system to be able to streamline the ordering and checkout process. Support from donors helps the A-City Pantry grow. Our new home is twice as large and will be able to offer much larger varieties of fresh produce and basic necessities to students in need. Thousands of students rely on the A-City Pantry each day. We're working hard to ensure that we're breaking down barriers that prevent students from accessing food resources that they need.
Thank you for that presentation, Pantry. I also want to call attention to the chat where we've put the the UC Basic Needs Data Dashboard. If you click on that link, maybe later after the presentation, you can actually do a deep dive into any of the most recent research about food and housing insecurity that's done by the UCs, and you can actually bring up what's going on at UC Davis or any of the UCs individually as well. Okay, with that, let's move on to our Q&A section. I now want to invite all of our speakers to come back on screen as we begin our discussion. Okay, we've had a lot of questions submitted, so we'll dive into those first, and then we will move on to the questions posted during the event via the Q&A box. Let's see, the first one is, as we see increased tuition rates and additional state and federal aid programs available, can you share why there continues to be so many students facing food and housing challenges? Maybe throw that one to Gwen.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. I think there are a lot of factors involved in this. Even with these aid programs, there isn't support from home. And so many students are the first in their family to attend college. Like myself, I'm a first-gen student. And so we aren't able to, call home when we need extra money for something. Housing in California is very expensive, as we know. And so financial aid, while our financial aid office is incredible and does everything that they can. Just these costs are really expensive. And so this is a separate conversation, from tuition. I think that was part of the underlying question. As graduate students, often with our, TA-ships or GSR-ship, that includes our tuition, but we still see that graduate students are food and housing insecure, maybe not quite as high rates of other questions, or as the undergraduates, but they are still there. And so it's much more of a systemic type issue than just something that the UC is doing.
Thanks, Gwen. And I wanted to throw another one that I've seen in the Q&A right now to you, since we got you going. Do these services, CalFresh Fruit and Veggie Up, apply to grad students at the Sacramento campus? Is their graduate student pantry the same as the ASUCD pantry?
Right. So the GSA pantry is separate from the ASUCD pantry. We're very happy to work with them. We're very happy to partner with them. But ours is in our graduate student association office. It's graduate students only. We wouldn't turn somebody away who needed it, but we do advertise that it's the graduate student space. In terms of CalFresh and Fruit and Veggie Up, yes, these are available to students at the Sacramento campus. Unfortunately, we don't have outreach locations there. And because Sacramento is in a different county, our workers at Aggie campus are able to help. But it's a slightly different process because all of these things are processed at the county level. But yes, these resources are accessible to everybody who is a UC Davis student. And we also community members who come into the space as well.
Thank you. Next question, what are your top 4 wish list ways philanthropy can help with these efforts? So I've been thinking a lot about this, and we have a goal to create a $5 million endowment. I'm going to just put it out there. That would help support these programs and services offered by Aggie Compass over the course, of the campaign. Additionally, philanthropy will allow us to continue to provide programs and direct student support and expand programming in areas like direct student aid for housing, rental assistance. Rental assistance includes helping a student who's in crisis right now, who cannot pay their rent right now, and they're in danger of becoming homeless, or helping a student who is homeless with a security deposit and the first month's rent in order to get into housing. It also includes, we get seniors who are 3-4 months away from graduation and can't make the rent for the next 3 or 4 months. So we help them get through and get to that graduation. It can also help support our college-focused rapid rehousing program. I'll just talk about this really briefly. This is where we identify homeless students and provide them with wraparound services that help them by, what we do is put them in immediate housing. That is in the fall, we'll be at the Green, which is out in West Village, and some of the brand new housing out there. They stay with us until we help them secure permanent housing. And then we help them, they pay a little bit of rent along the way. We collect that rent and give that back to them at the end of the program to help them get into permanent housing. And all along the way, we provide them with intensive case management that is both traditional case management and college focused, getting them to graduation in a healthy way. We also put together hygiene and shower bags for our homeless students and students living in their cars. We provide help with mental health co-pays. Any money that we get from the state does not cover mental health and medical co-pays. So we're able to help that through donor funding, as well as psychoeducational testing. The list goes on, including support for our AB 540 and undocumented students, which state funding does not allow for. So I don't want to take up too much more time with that, but I have so much more to say though. Here's one from the Q&A. I mentioned earlier that transportation is now included in the basic needs definition, and does Aggie Compass have plans to transition any resources to that space? So right now, most of our funding comes through the state education budget, and that is restricted to just food and housing. We're hoping to change that. However, there are things we can do. We can do lots of in-kind support. And our Basic Needs Advisory Committee is now focusing on transportation. So we're looking at bike donation program that we just got up and running, that not only donates free bicycles to students in need, but teaches them how to repair their own bicycles. And the Basic Needs Committee is now working with coming up with projects and things in the area of transportation for those students. Let's see. We can talk a little bit about marketing and outreach. I see a lot of questions about that. So, Faith, can you talk a little bit about how you and the center get the word out directly to students? And then after that, maybe we'll talk about how we reach faculty and staff.
Yes, absolutely. One of the big ways we do reach out to students through social media. So follow our Instagram page at Aggie Compass. You know, I just had to plug that in. So we do a big social media, we're a big social media organization. So we do have a social media page, and we also did, to make sure that the word is actually reaching out and it's captivating, we actually did hire 2 graphic designers who are in charge of making sure that our posters and every other graphics that is going on our Instagram page is engaging and captivating, so students can know that. Another way we do promote to students is we do class presentations. So this quarter, I and some other couple of workers at the center, we went to different classes virtually, and we spoke about our center, what we do, and resources that we have to provide. We also do lots of tabling. Well, when we're back in person, we will do lots of tabling. Like, for example, we did like fall welcome, the grad students fall welcome, and other like big events like that, where we'll just table, talk to students and flyer. Another way we do reach out to is through our pop-ups program. Again, back prior to the pandemic, we would always give out flyers with the goodie bags that we were giving out, so folks can know where our center is located at and what we do in our services. And we do lots of other presentations related to the school. So we do target like incoming freshmen, incoming transfers, incoming grad students. So we do target that population so they know about the resources on campus. So those are the main ways we do reach out to students.
Thanks, Faith. Yeah. So another way that we do outreach is we have another audience that we outreach to, our faculty and staff. So what we want both faculty and advisors predominantly, and also other staff to know is who we are, why we're here, and how to get their students to us. Like, how can we help students? So basically we go on tour every fall and every spring. We go to faculty brown bag lunches. We go to staff brown bag lunches. We go to staff meetings. We go We just do the rounds of presentations and concentrate on how students can, how faculty and staff can use us. So we have 2 exciting developments for the fall. Keep your fingers crossed that we can get everything done. But one of them is we hope to launch the Aggie Concern Line, and that is one phone number that faculty and staff can call when they have a student of concern. We're still working on the exact definition for student of concern, but basically the idea is if you're concerned about a student, call this number and we can help you. We can triage with you, help give you resources to refer that student or reach out directly to that student. So that's one exciting thing we're going to do in the fall. And the other exciting thing that we want to do mid-year is do a basic needs ally training. And this is both for students, so how students can become allies, but then also how faculty and staff can become allies. And this is more of a formalized training for faculty and staff and how you can get your students the help that they need. I had a faculty call me at the center about 1.5 years ago and say, my student sent me an email that said, I'm really sorry that I'm late on my stuff. I won't be able to come to class coming up because, and the student was very apologetic, just like, I know that this doesn't mean anything, really, but I'm struggling to find food. I'm sleeping on the quad in a hammock. Just give me a minute, to get my life on track. And this faculty member was talking to me on the phone. She was like, how can I help this student? I don't know what to do. And of course they knew what to do for their own course, but not in terms of how to get this student the help that they needed. I was able to talk that faculty through their options for helping the student and how they could ask the student if we could reach out directly to them. There were several things that we could do for that student. So anyway, I believe that answered the question. I have a question for Debbie now. Can you go deeper into what you've seen at some of the other UC campuses and maybe what you've seen that we're doing differently here at UC Davis? And I don't want to fish for compliments or anything, so be honest.
You don't need to fish. They should come your way naturally. Our center is fortunate. We were the first in the system to have somebody from Yolo County in our office, literally helping students in need apply for CalFresh. And there are a couple of questions in the chat about CalFresh. It's notoriously complicated. Students may qualify, but they don't know what to do in the first place. And our Aggie Compass is the first in the entire system to have somebody from Yolo County who knows what to do about CalFresh on staff. That's a huge thing. The other thing, unfortunately, I've noticed at other basic needs centers on other campuses, there's no less need there. There are students in need everywhere, but for some reason, perhaps for lack of philanthropic support, those basic needs centers are not able to be open as many hours as ours is. They'll be open alternate days, for example. Or what if you're hungry on a Tuesday, but they don't open up until a Wednesday? It's a really unfortunate situation. I'm hopeful that there would be some more systemic help from the state. The state budget does right now at the moment, for example, does include money for mental health on an ongoing basis, which is part of the basic needs, conundrum. But there are many things that we can do, and it's not just philanthropy that will help these students.
Thank you, Debbie. Question here from Michelle Famula. Michelle, I miss you on campus. Michelle asks, what's the projected percent of students that can be housed on campus when all the on-campus, when all of the building is completed? And then is there any program to stipend student help and help them afford living on campus and transportation? So I can't answer down to the nitty gritty exact numbers about how many beds are predicted to come online. I know that over the course, let's see, about 2 years ago, over the course of about 5 years, we were bringing on over 9,000 new beds on campus. And we had strengthened our relationship with the city. The city was bringing on an additional 3,000 beds. I know that out at the Green last fall, we opened up 1,000 new beds, and this fall, we're opening up 2,500 more. So this should help a lot with the kind of stabilizing that skyrocketing cost of housing in Davis. It's not going to bring it down, but it'll help to stabilize it. Currently, we have a rental stipend program out at the Green. It's a modest program that provides $100 a month towards a student's rent at the Green. It's needs-based. A student can apply. We're about to open up the application process for that, and this goes out to 150 students. Which last year was about 15% of the new beds that we brought on campus. We are working to be able to provide a larger rent stipend to students than that, and I'm gearing up to make that happen. Cost of transportation. Oh, well, the other thing I just wanted to say about that modest stipend is that it's not going to get anybody out of their car. $100 a month is not going to get a homeless student into an apartment. But for those students that are at the Green, that are in need, we can provide $100 a month and all the myriad resources that Aggie Compass brings to the table, and hopefully offset some of the cost of living. In terms of the cost of transportation for them, we're still working on transportation, and hopefully we'll come up with some good solutions there. All right, so as we continue our Q&A for the next several minutes, you'll see a poll on your screen. So please take a minute to answer. Again, that's going to help us inform us on what you think is important. Gwen, a question for you. Do you empirically measure the impact on student outcomes, including GPA, persistence, and graduation? And if so, how long after the intervention do you collect this data?
And thank you, Leslie. That's a really interesting question. So most of the information most of the research that's looked at these types of outcomes with food insecurity has just been, measuring associations, looking to see if, food insecure students do have differences in persistence. Our program and our center is one of the first in the country who is actually looking at outcomes and looking at, do our programs work in this way? So we are in the process of doing so. We've done some of these measurements in statewide data and not just UC Davis specific data. But typically what we are doing is looking at survey results, and we're able to tie that to some of our swipe systems that were highlighted in Ryan's video for the pantry. So not every campus has not everybody has the same type of setup or the sophistication of a setup that the ASUCD pantry does, but everybody is collecting data in the form of student ID of the students who are using the services. And so we're able to use that information to look at things like GPA, like persistence, and other outcomes like that. So yes, we are. It's right now very much in the use and outcome stage for that, but we're hoping to get more sophisticated as well as time goes on.
Thanks, Gwen. Appreciate it. Let's see. So the question's coming up about volunteer opportunities. So right now, the pantry, the ASUCD pantry, uses, I'm going to say 99% volunteer help. And that, the 1%, I think would probably account for the small student stipends, like we're talking about maybe $100 a quarter that the director gets and some of the students' officers at the pantry get. They run volunteer programs throughout the year that faculty, staff, and community members can be a part of. This includes food drives and actually running the pantry. We collaborate with the pantry over breaks and often will ask for volunteers to help keep it open. And that's because as a student-run volunteer operation, obviously you want to let your students have a break, and there's only so many staff, actual like professional staff to keep those things open. So we'll often go out and ask for volunteers. We also pre-COVID had a pretty robust volunteer program. And we hope to revive that for the fall. That volunteer program was for students. In the fall, we hope to have students and include community members in those volunteer opportunities. Let's see. How does funding Aggie Compass provides to students impact their financial aid budget? That's a good question. So we have a very strong partnership with financial aid. Couldn't do what we do without them. So we were able to secure a basic needs dedicated financial aid officer. And this is key. And the reason it's key is because students who are basic needs insecure have, I mean, there are nuances, you know, they're kind of not, they come in asking different questions, and often their need is more immediate than another student that might come in to basic needs. So Jeremy Sandoval is our basic needs officer, and he's aware of grocery gift card programs that we can provide students with cards on the spot, and also take a look at their finances and their financial aid. Also, we run several grants. So what happens is we'll partner with Amelia George over at Student Health and Counseling Services to offer a mental health grant. And we'll bring in our financial aid officer. And what usually happens there is Amelia, who has the program experience, will determine which students can get, she'll, want to grant a certain amount of students. We'll work with financial aid to find out exactly how to give students these grants without their financial aid going down, right? And that has to do with how much room there is in their budget, and we could get all technical, but nobody wants to do that. But just, I think it would suffice to say that Jeremy can take a look at their financial aid, see whether or not they're using it to so that it has its biggest impact, and where we can grant them money to help them become basic needs secure on campus. I mean, it's an integral part of what we do, that partnership, and also that partnership with Student Health and Counseling Services as well. last question. What are some ways that we can increase awareness about these basic needs statistics that are impacting our students? I'm going to open this up to the panel. Ways that we can increase awareness about these basic needs statistics.
I will just start. I know that this the scintillating reading, that is the Regents' report from the Special Committee on Basic Needs, has been posted in the chat. That is something we can use to educate ourselves going forward when we have discussions with other donors or legislators or people like that. And that's on a much more macro level. But it's something I think the very fact that the committee was established is saying that this basic needs issue is everywhere. It is a problem. We need to figure out what the causes are and find a solution. So that in itself is a small victory.
Thanks, Debbie. Gwen?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that we could do. I think one of the big things is being thoughtful about how some of our other policies and positions and our votes, how those things impact students. And for example, tonight the Davis Housing Element Committee is going to meet and talk about plans for housing in Davis. The city of Davis prior to the pandemic had a 1% vacancy rate. And so that type of shortage and shortfall drives up the price of units. And this is something that impacts students. And so, there can sometimes be a disconnect between, oh, there's enough, we don't want to build more housing. We want our town to stay nice and cute and small and all of those things. But then, our students are struggling. And so I think for a lot of people and in their internal positions, there's a disconnect. And I think we need to recognize that a lot of these things that are trickling down and impacting students, it's, not to be too political, but it's really the only time that trickle down economics works is those pressures are trickling down to students and to our day-to-day life.
Thanks, Gwen. And I'm just going to add here that a couple of years ago, I got this question all the time. It was what? Like, why is this happening? Like when I went to college, I struggled too. I mean, I ate pizza the whole time. I ate, ramen all the time. I mean, I struggled too, and I made it. And I mean, is this just like a kind of a made up thing? And people really struggled with this idea that there were homeless students, and what does food insecurity mean anyway? So what I will say is, food insecurity, it means two things. Number one, you're worried about where your next meal is going to come from. And number two, very low food insecurity is you are skipping meals. So that's what food insecurity means. Housing insecurity means you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight. You don't know if you're going to be able to have a lease next year or if you're going to be able to afford that. It goes everything from houselessness, couch surfing, to just not knowing where you're going to sleep. When I went to college, which was 30 years ago, I could have a part-time job, I could work, study, and I could go to school and I could make it work. It was tough, but I made it work. Now, comparatively, commodities are 3 times more expensive than how much they were if you compare, that I'm making the same thing and the commodities are now 3 times. So $1 buys 2/3 less than it used to buy. And the final thing that I'll mention about that is that over the last 10, 20 years, thank you, UC Davis, we've gone out and we have looked for students from financially diverse backgrounds right? We've looked for students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and we have made education accessible. And because of that, we have more and more students from low income families coming to campus, and we have not built the infrastructure at the pace to support these students at the pace that we're accepting them. So we're doing it now. We're catching up now. This is part of what we're doing. You can't ask a financial, a basic needs insecure student to come to campus and then just assume they're going to be fine. You have to help them while they're here and hopefully set them up to be secure when they leave campus. Anyway, I could talk forever, but I won't. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. It's really been wonderful to see the engagement and the interest. I'd like now to turn things back over to Debbie to close us out. Take it away, Debbie.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the panelists. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Before we close, I want to highlight the importance of supporting student financial basic needs with philanthropy. It's upside down that we're even having this conversation about using philanthropy to support our students' food, housing, and mental health needs, but here we are. It's really hard to study if your stomach hurts from hunger or if you're living in your car. And it could be any emergency that happens that puts you over that edge where you're going to need a little bit of temporary financial help. As Chancellor May and Mrs. May said, UC Davis is leading the way and providing Aggies with equitable access to food and housing security. This is what Aggies do. We find and implement solutions to the world's most urgent problems, even when those problems are on our own campus. If you're interested in helping UC Davis in its work to meet student basic needs, please contact Jane Fortner. Her information will be on the chat. I just want to say my family has established an endowment to provide emergency grants for students when they do come a few dollars short, but any amount of money or any kind of in-kind donations, such as toiletries, would be welcome. Make sure you contact Jane Fortner on further instructions on how to help. With that, I want to say thank you. We hope everybody's staying healthy and safe, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Goodbye.